Hello, Jason. How are you, mate? Eddie Clarke, yeah.
Eddie Clarke, how's it going with you these days? What are you doing?
Well, pretty good, man. Pretty good.
That's great, great.
I'm getting older, but I'm still at it.
Right on. So, what's some of your current projects that you're doing these days?
Well, I'm finishing up an album. I've done another Fastway album with a guy called Todd Jepson as the singer and bass player. I don't know whether did you ever hear of a band called Little Angels back in '90s, early '90s?
Actually, I haven't. No.
They did quite a bit in Europe, and I think they did a little bit in America. But anyway, he was the singer, and of course, they broke up in about '93, I think. And he kind of hit the skids. He tried a bit of this, bit of acting, bit of that, bit of the other. But he's ended up back in music. And I ran into him about 3 years ago when we reformed Fastway to do some festivals. And he was the vocalist, and we struck up a bit of a friendship. So we did these festivals in 2007. You know, we did Europe, we did one in Japan, and it was just for a bit of fun, really. And then I got together with him again this last year, 2010. In the summer, we were going to do a couple more shows, but they didn't come together. So we said, well, why not do an album together? So we just finished it, and we're just in the sort of final mixing stages at the moment.
So is this going to be like another Fastway album in a sense?
Well, it is, yeah. It's a sort of, it could be a swan song for me, but I mean, it's a great album. It's going to be a great album. It's Fastway. We decided to call it Fastway in the end because, you know, Clarke Jepson or some other new name didn't seem worth, you know, it's a bit late in life for that, you know.
But the classic name Fastway still lives on.
Well, yeah, it is in a way because, well, it's just one of those things. I mean, we did these shows, as I say, in 2007, and we did one in 2008. And, I mean, it still goes down quite well. People remember, you know. It's just kind of nice, you know. It's nice to have a sort of an already established sort of brand because you feel like you're not starting from scratch. You're just sort of, you know, you're just sort of continuing. I mean, I don't expect it to do big business or anything, but it's nice to be able to do something with a brand that's already established, you know.
And Eddie, one good thing about it is the famous song "Say What You Will," you know, still playing in America.
Well, we did. I mean, I have been told that. I mean, people still say they still play it, which is fascinating. I mean, it was a great song, and I know the Americans really took to it. I mean, they didn't take to it over here at all.
Now, why not?
Oh, I don't know. We were dead in the water here, mate. We were, you know, when I left Motorhead in '82, then I put the band together with Pete Way and Jerry Shirley and Dave King. And we did a tour here in early '83 with the first album, which I thought was a great album. And nothing. I mean, you know, I literally thought my career was over. It would have been about probably May '83 after we did the tour here. It didn't sell very well, and you know the record didn't do well, and nobody really seemed to give a shit. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh fuck me, I think this is all over, you know. And then we got that phone call from America saying, hey, WMMS in Cleveland are playing the B-side of your single, and they love it. And so, you know, from thinking that it was all over, suddenly it was all on again, you know. But thanks to the US market, you know, it was thanks to the US kids, not here. So, and it's never improved here, really. It's never, you know, never meant much over here.
But at least the song still survives because you can still hear it on American radio.
Yeah, well, that's great. You know, I mean, it's a shame it didn't do better in Europe, but that's why I want to try. I'm trying at the moment to get place the record with a sort of an independent classic rock label in America. You know, I don't know. I've heard that there's quite a few over there, so I'm going to be once the album's finished, which should be done in a couple of weeks. Then I'm going to start looking. You know, I'm not looking for a big deal or anything. I just like someone who wants to get it out there and get it to radio, and because I personally think this album is probably as good as the first album, which is saying quite a lot, really, because there was a lot of stuff in between. But this is really, I'm really pleased with this. I'm really chuffed with it, you know.
Another thing too, Eddie, is the equipment you're using on this album. You know, sound like the original Fastway. Would you say?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I can't change, you know what I mean?
And then
I've got the same set of guitars. I've got the same amps, you know, because I always kept my amps because I loved them so much and I loved all my guitars. The only thing that's different on this, we did an acoustic. We've got one acoustic. Toby does a half a song acoustic. You know, he plays a bit of acoustic, but it's still rock. I mean, it's a bit sort of Bon Jovi-ish, I suppose. I don't know. But then, of course, it kicks off at the end, and it's just a bit of fun, really. It's just really, I really enjoyed doing it. We did it up in Chapel in Lincolnshire, and yeah, we did. Spent a month up there and knocked it all out. You know, which you'll be getting a copy as soon as it's ready.
Right on. I can't wait to hear this classic sounding album in a new...
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's real classic. In fact, it might be a bit too classic. Yeah, we've really gone back to how it used to be. You know, we just set the gear up, rehearsed with the drummer, went in and just recorded it and just laid it down like that. You know.
So like, what type of guitars are you still playing nowadays? Like,
well, I'm still using I've got the blonde Les Paul, which which I bought from new in '72. And then I lost it for a while and got it back again. I used that with Motorhead as well. I used it on the Overkill album a lot, and I always did the backing tracks with it on Ace of Spades and Bomber. And but of course I had my Strat as well, which was my live guitar, which I've gone back to using live with Fastway as well. I use the Strat now, the old Motorhead Strat. You know, it just has a little bit more something about it. It's a bit more comfortable. But I used the Les Paul and the Strat on the. I did buy a Telecaster. I got an American Telecaster I bought a few years ago, and I put a couple of rhythm tracks down with that. They give it a kind of sort of a double track jangly edge, but you wouldn't notice it too much. It just sounds a little bit different, but really it's just thick old-fashioned rhythm guitars, you know.
Analog or digital, this album?
It's Pro Tools, yeah. It's digital. Okay. We used the Neve desk. You know, we used a bit of analog outboard stuff in a sort of an attempt. We did think of going for tape, but man, it's so fucking difficult to get hold of the fucking tape. And at the end of the day, you know, with the amount of editing you can do on the Pro Tools, it's a bit of a thingy, you know. And plus, the budget was relatively small.
At the end of all of this, you would have had the same product almost delivered.
Well, that's one of the things. I mean, it ends up as digital anyway.
Right.
So you know, as you say, it's going to be a CD, 16-bit CD. So you know, at least doing it this way, you're kind of every stage you're doing it, you're trying to make it sound how you want to hear it, so that when it does get to the CD stage, you know, it's sounding as much like the old stuff or the old days as possible, you know, that your ears allow, you know.
Right.
But, I mean, I do miss vinyl. I do hear vinyl now. I've got some friends who always get the vinyl out, you know, and there is definitely something nice about putting a record on, and it does have a certain quality that you definitely don't get with CDs, you know. But so few people have vinyl now. It's you know, it's just not worth it, really, is it?
But is there not a comeback for vinyl that, you know, at least America, you see it coming, you know, little by little?
Well, coming back?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a couple of years ago, there was a little surge here. And people were starting to do their albums in vinyl. But then it sort of died out again. I think it was an attempt to try and reintroduce vinyl, but it didn't really happen here. But I mean, I could see something like that happening in America because it's such a bigger market, you know, and the music over there, the rock music market and the general sort of market is bigger. Here we've got all this fucking pop music still over here. We still have the same problems here, you know. I mean, X Factor's the fucking biggest thing since sliced bread here, you know. and rock records just don't make it into the charts here. They just don't. You know, you get the odd one now and again. To be fair, though, some of the big tours do sell out. You know, we've had Skinner over here, we've had a few over here, and they've all sold out well. But it's always been the same over here. I mean, you know, Germany was always good. You know, you could always get a good rock thing here. But even when we were Motorhead, I mean, in those days, you know, we ruled the roost, but it was very short-lived. You know, and then it all went down to that fucking 80s stuff like Duran Duran and, you know, all the crap, you know. I mean, that's provided you don't like them. I never did.
At least they made it big, you know. They had the way to sell it.
What's that?
Well, Duran and all them, they had them, the big
Yeah,
companies
but I mean,
bagging them up.
Yeah, it's not about fucking. Do you know what the thing is? It's not. People think, oh, it's all about being famous and that, but it's not at all. It's about being out there playing your fucking music and partying heavily. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the music funding the lifestyle. So you can carry on rocking. That's what it was always about. It was never really about trying to be famous. I mean, people say, "Oh man, you become a fucking legend." I say, "Well, fuck, that wasn't the point. I was in it for the, just for playing. I just love playing the guitar. It's the love of my life, really.
Eddie, going back to your guitar equipment, let's say on the Motorhead albums and the Fastway, would it have been mostly the same that you've been producing? With the guitar sound, same equipment mostly.
Yes. The only thing that would have changed were the strings.
Okay.
As I say, I've got that Telecaster, and I've got a little. Oh, and I did use a little. I've got a little Les Paul Junior that I got in America when I was with Fastway, and I did that. I did a rhythm and a lead with that on this new album. But basically, I used to use rotor sound strings when I was with Motorhead, and so all the guitars had rotor sound on. I found they were good. It wasn't for the tone or anything. It was because they used to last. Because I used to have problems breaking strings during songs with Motorhead. We used to break a lot of strings, but rotor sounds seemed to hang on. They could take the punishment, as it were. But of course, once I left Motorhead, of course, I put the Strat in its case. And then I moved exclusively into Les Paul territory. I didn't play the Stratocaster with Fastway at all. I bought an old 57 Black Beauty. I had my blonde one that I had, which is a 72. It had the little pickups. That's my main Les Paul. And then I bought a little gold top. It must be, it's probably actually late 50s as well, but it's been beaten up and everything's been changed on it, so it's not a classic or anything. So those were the three guitars I set out with when I left Motorhead and started to do the Fastway album. And the problem with the Strat was with the Fastway stuff, it was a little bit too dirty.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't quite, I was going for a slightly different sound then. I was going for something a little bit harder, not so grunchy, and that's where the Les Pauls came in, because they give you that sort of bluesy edge that you don't really get with the Strat, Although a lot of blues players use Strats, I've always found them more grab it by the scruff of the neck and run with it, whereas the Les Pauls, they sit heavy on you, and they sort of give you that sort of deep sort of bluesy feel, Do you play yourself?
Yeah, I play some Gibsons and Fenders as well, yeah.
Yeah, do you? Yeah. I mean, I've tried other guitars. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when we did Ace of Spades, for a couple of backing tracks, I used the Yamaha 2000. Do you remember them?
No, I don't.
Yeah, Santana played one in the 70s before he went to the Ibanez.
Okay.
It was very similar to the Ibanez, but it was the Yamaha 2000. And it was a very respectable guitar. I mean, it was hailed at the time as a great guitar, and it was quite nice, I have to say. I was just experimenting with the double-track rhythms, because I always double-track my guitars, really, most of the time. And so I was just experimenting. But I used that, and I found that quite nice on a couple of tracks. In fact, I think I put a track down on Ace of Spades with it. And, yeah, I kind of liked it. As I was saying, I used the Les Paul Junior on a double track with this in this new album, and it really made a nice bit of colour,
And to this day, you still got that Yamaha guitar?
No. We rented it in.
Okay.
I couldn't buy one of those. It's not something I want to own. You know what I mean? It was something we were experimenting. I just did like to experiment as much as I could, just to try and get as much out of it as possible. I was always trying to make everything better. As you do, you think, hang on, how can I make this better? Let's try a different guitar on this. Let's try different amps, Most of the time I ended up back where I started, but at least I did try,
For sure.
It was always this quest. It was always a quest for getting a better sound, make it better. Always try and make it better, even when it was probably as good as it could be, you still kept trying, It was just, it's what you did, I think. I think it's what people do. You just, because it's your art, you just want to make it better and better, as good as it can be.
Like the amplifiers in the old days compared to now, do you still record
Well, it's
at the same volume?
I still use a 100-watt Marshall 1 cab, really.
Okay.
And have it turned up full, you know. And that's it. And that's how I do it, you know. I haven't really changed that. I did try, over the years, I've tried different fucking scenarios, you know, little combos, and I tried Peavies, I tried Mesa Boogies, I tried them all out. But I've got this one particular 100-watt Marshall amp that I've had for the last 30 years. And I'll tell you what, even the engineers, when I plug it in and start playing, they go, fuck me, I've never heard an amp sound like that, you know. And it's a master volume, it's a 1980 master volume. And it's just got 4 EL34s in it. And it's just something about it. It's just got this wicked sound. And I've kept it all these years. And we were doing this out because I hadn't recorded for 17 years was the last time I did any real recording. So when we went to the studio, I got my amp out, put it on top of the thing, plugged it in, and the fucking engineer said, fucking hell, that sounds great, you know. And I patted my amp on the top and said, there you go. It's just one of those things, you know, sometimes you come across a good sounding amp, and then you just have to hang on to it, you know, which I've done. I've carried it through thick and thin. I didn't have anywhere to live. I carried it, you know. So I've always hung on to it, you know. Because
to this day, it's hard to find an amp that matches that 80s tone anyways for a Marshall, certainly.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think, you know, there was a lot lost when they, well, just time seems to erode everything. Then it's like the guitars. I pick up a new Les Paul now, or a new Strat, you know. They don't feel quite right. I don't know what it is. It's just the weight seems to be wrong, the balance seems to be a little bit out, and you plug them in. And I don't know, they just sound a little bit, I don't know what it is. They sound a little bit factory built, you know, even though they probably were before. But of course, my ears are getting a bit fluffy probably with the years, you know, all the years of loud amplifiers and things, you know.
Let's say back in the day when you went from Motorhead, you know, I'm sure Motorhead was a really loud band on stage in your days of it. Was Fastway as loud?
No. It was a lot of our loudness came out of the fact that Lemmy's bass guitar. People don't realise when he played bass, he had a lead 100-watt. Well, he had lead 100-watt Marshall amps. He had them linked up, and they were all lead amps, and he had all the bass turned off. So if you can imagine how difficult it is to try and get your guitar to get above the bass, you see what I mean?
Right.
Because of the sound he had was almost like, well, it was like more like a rhythm guitar with bass strings, you know. So of course then it was that old Deep Purple thing where everything has to be louder than everything else. So we were constantly, I couldn't hear myself, so I'd turn myself up, and he thought he couldn't hear himself. And then he turned himself up, and he had a bit of problem with one of his ears anyway, the ear that went to the stage monitors. So, because we used to have about 5,000 or 6,000 watts on stage either side, and of course that started not to be enough, and it was getting so fucking loud, and of course it got louder out front. We used to get complaints from people. People's parents used to write in complaining about how their kids had come home from a Motorhead gig and their ears were still ringing, and they're going to sue us, you know. We had a lot of that, which was quite funny. But it used to cut the top of your fucking head off, you know. It was so toppy. It used to cut the top of your fucking head off. The only bassy thing in the band was the bass drum. You know, and Phil used to play that as well, a pair of them. He used to play them as fucking much as he could, you know, which was handy. That's why when I joined Fastway, it was like a new beginning for me, because I'd been with Motorhead for, 6.5 years. And I'd kind of really lost touch with my roots, which was the old Yardbirds, you know, all that early blues stuff, the John Mayall stuff and all that. That's where my roots were. And, of course, I lost that with Motorhead because not having a proper bass, you know, more like a rhythm guitar, it meant that I couldn't really solo like I used to solo. It was always a battle, you know, and trying to find a spot where I could put something in. And it was, but when I started playing with Fastway, the first rehearsals we had, I had it with the Clash's drummer, Topper Hedden, and Pete Way. We had a jam. We said, let's go and have a jam. And I couldn't believe what it was like to play with someone who played a real bass guitar, you know, proper bass, with like an Ampeg, you know. And of course it boomed along, and of course I could just play a solo, and of course there was a wealth of stuff for me to lean on, you know, when I was playing. Whereas with Motorhead, it was all very thin, and it didn't sound like I was actually playing on top of something. It was more like I was playing in something, you know. Anyway, I'm rambling.
A blast from the past with Eddie Clarke here.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I ramble a bit. See, it's old age.
Hey, well, that's all fine, man. We're having some good stories here, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So, how's your hearing today? Still good? You would say?
It's still good. It's still good. I mean, you know, I have a little bit of ringing, you know, but nothing that really upsets me or bothers me. I mean, I know a lot of musicians who do have a lot of trouble with this tinnitus thing, you know. They have a lot of problems and a bit of deafness, but I've so far, touched wood, it's pretty good. I mean, it's obviously not as good as it could be. I mean, my missus can hear better than I can, and the dog hears better than I can, but then that's because it's a dog.
For sure, a dog will always hear better.
Yeah, well, a dog's got special ears, isn't it?
Yes. You won't see a dog at a Motorhead concert.
Bar of chocolate from 300 yards, you know.
Yeah.
New album, man, it's fucking brilliant. I'm really looking forward to it. You know, we're just doing. I tell you what, we got James Flames. Have you ever heard of James Flames, the artist? You know, he's an illustrator. He's American.
Okay.
And I can't remember who he's done. You can always look him up on the internet. It's called James Flames, and he's doing our cover for us because the album's going to be called Eat Dog Eat.
Mm-hmm.
And this James Flames, we should have it by the end, well, maybe the end of this week or middle of next week, we should have the cover finished and we should have that. So then we can put it all together. Just a couple of mixes we're just looking at the moment. Toby's having because he's got I've got a studio here. I use Cubase, but he's got Pro Tools up there at his place. So he's just looking at a couple of beginnings and intros and stuff that we want to just maybe edit down a little bit. But then we're ready to sort of try and get a deal and get it. I'd like to get it out, sort of like circulating around April, you know. But you know, I think people who like the first Fastway album are going to love this record. I think they're going to love it. There's some really great licks on it, and it really is old-fashioned, you know.
You got to make sure I get that in my hands and put that in the
CD
player.
As soon as I get it, mate, it'll be over to you.
All right.
Maybe you could play a couple of tracks on your radio station.
For sure.
Yeah, it'd be nice, mate. Be nice. I'll try and get you an exclusive. Well, you probably will have actually, because I haven't spoke to anybody else. I don't do too much of this now. You know, I just keep my head down.